Hey everybody, Sean with the New Columbia Movement. Welcome back to our channel. I'm finally glad to be sitting down and doing one of these videos again. I know it's been a while. Things look a little different. I've got books behind me now, so it actually looks like I'm smart and I might know what I'm talking about. Topic of today is going to be guns, of course. Another string of mass shootings. Guns are in the news. I'm tired of hearing the wrong solutions, so let's dive into it. So here we are again. Every time the great gun debate finds itself in the national spotlight, we're met with the same roundabout talking points best illustrated by your redneck Uncle Billy down from South Alabama and your crazy Aunt Sandra living in her studio apartment up in New York City. Now, I don't mean to sound insensitive or nothing, but I do believe that some of these tired, stupid, useless talking points deserve mockery. So that's what we're doing here. It's called We Do a Little Mockery. So let's go ahead and talk about these two talking points. Let's hit the wave tops real quick, and I don't want to harp on it too much because it's just a waste of breath, to be perfectly honest. So number one, do we want armed guards in schools? So this is a perfect example of a temporary solution to a permanent problem. It's what it is. Yeah, we can put armed guards in schools. Do we have enough, realistically? How many schools are there? And if we're putting them in schools, does that prevent shootings in other locations? Are we going to put an armed guard on every street corner? Is that really what we need? It's kind of ridiculous. Do we want our kids going to schools where every morning when they get off the bus, they have to walk through the doors past three guys holding M240s, just to make sure that they can go in and get their public indoctrination? I can't imagine that adding metal detectors and bars over windows and M240 machine gun nests and sniper towers or whatever the heck it evolves into, automatic sentries, is the right solution. I can't imagine that's going to be a good deal for anybody. So let's set that one to the side for now. Are we going to ban all guns? No, obviously not. There are millions of guns in the United States. If you ban guns, you're still going to have the criminals coming across the border using the guns. Criminals are going to do what criminals do. We already have laws in place that say that you can't go into a school full of children and shoot them. Are we going to ban all knives? Butter knives? Steak knives? I mean, this is the tired talking point. I don't want to harp on it, but banning guns ain't the solution either. So, let's talk about what the real issues are. Let's talk about what the real solutions are. So another common talking point from the right is this whole idea that we need to improve our mental health institutions because there's a mental health crisis and this is what's leading to these kind of shootings. And I think that's closer to the mark there, but we're still not getting at the root of it. Why is there mental health crises today that we didn't have in the past? I mean, when we had gun clubs in high schools back in the 50s and 40s, there weren't shootings. There weren't. So what's different now? Why do we have this mental health crisis? I mean, we're a Christian nationalist organization, so I think you know where we stand, but take a listen to this real quick.
I found something interesting regarding the rise of mass shootings in America. What you are looking at here is a chart of mass shootings, and here's another one. Now, what I find interesting is that if you overlay these charts and graphs of mass shootings with the charts and graphs of the rise in atheism and the fall of Christianity in America, they seem to be identical. It seems to show a direct correlation between the fall of Christianity and the rise of mass shootings. Now, I'm not saying for sure this is why it's happening, but it makes sense, doesn't it? If you believe in Jesus Christ, then you believe in what he said about the afterlife and what happens to people who do horrible things like this. On the other hand, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, then right and wrong could be subjective. And if somebody does not believe they will be held accountable for their actions in this life, well, there's no telling what they may or may not do.
Yeah. In short, you need Jesus. We become so intent on secularizing our culture and believing that we can remove the organ and retain the function, and that organ being God, morality, objective truth, justice, all of these things that stem from a traditional Christian moral perspective, moral worldview, natural law, divine law, all these things that we constantly harp on, there's a reason for it. So if you're content in living in an evil world and you can scrape up a few of the virtuous people left and hand them an AR-15 and put them at the entrances of schools, if that's your solution, that's the kind of world you want to live in, then by all means, let's just stop there. And if your solution is that we just need to disarm everybody, and you think that that's good, you think that the type of government that's happy to execute millions and millions of babies every year through state-sanctioned genocide, you think that's a good solution too? Is that the kind of world you want to live in? Come on, let's be serious. The thing that I'm really getting tired of, that I hear on the right constantly, is, well, they're never going to take my guns. Like, there's just going to be this drop of the hat day where the government finally decides to secure all the power that it's always wanted, and they're just going to start sending the goon squad door to door, coming to rake up your arms, and that's the day that you start actually resisting. You're perfectly happy to be Joe Sixpack up until that day and do nothing about anything that's happening in this country. Nothing at all, by the way. Yeah, you sit there and you watch your sports ball on Sundays and you grill out and you go to your 9 to 5 and you ignore the realities of the world around you. But yeah, no, the day they come for your guns, that's when you're going to be Mr. Resistance. That's when you're going to be Captain America, and you're going to grab your shield and you're going to say, not today, Satan. I don't believe it. I really don't, actually. I don't believe it at all. Because in the Marine Corps, we had a saying, it's called train like you fight. You put yourself through these rigorous training activities that resemble the battlefield as much as possible, because the day that the battle actually comes, you need to have as close to the real thing of experience that you can get. And so I really don't believe that these people who are unwilling to fight the cultural battle now are going to be willing to take up arms against the federal government, because the day that the federal government is actually coming for your guns, they've already won. I'll tell you that right now. They've already won. And a matter of fact, I'll say this. You've already been disarmed. Okay? When there's state-sanctioned genocide of the most innocent, how long has Roe v. Wade been instituted in this country? Neglecting the very basic concept of this Constitution, which says that we all have a right to life. What are you going to use your guns for? There's this warped notion that the guns are there for the sake of preserving the guns themselves. They're not. And this is the great conservative right's view of the Second Amendment. Is the Second Amendment exists to protect the Second Amendment so that we can keep our Second Amendment for the sake of the Second Amendment. It's not what it's there for, pal. That's a misconceived notion of what the Second Amendment is. And this whole idea of a Second Amendment is not necessarily a new concept. We didn't revolutionize the idea of having an armed citizenry. Okay? If we want to take a look back in history, I promise you that every single peasant farmer living on his lord's land had some kind of weapon in his house, and he could use that weapon the minute that the lord started being unjust to the people. There was a shared relationship between the farmers and the owners of the land. And guess what? If the owners of the land started being tyrannical and corrupt, they knew that they had a mob to face down. So they didn't really do that. They liked to keep themselves in check. And let's not even talk about the fact that, there was actually a structure of virtue in those societies that would prevent both the farmers from unjust rioting and the lords from unjust land seizures or whatever, the problems of the day were. So there was that healthy respect. And of course, it was informed by the church. It was informed by Christian moral principles. But even still, nobody's perfect. And so when these things did happen, guess what they did? They grabbed their pitchforks and torches. There's the reason we have that expression. Grab your torches and pitchforks. And they went and they handled things. And that's why you didn't have these problems so much as you do now, where, in the 20th century especially, you see plenty of countries disarming their citizenry and then turning into tyrannies. Let's talk about the Holodomor. The crafty nature of the modern fight that we have to fight here is that this web of bureaucracy has been created around us. And it really prevents us from being able to point the finger at any one person and say, you're the reason why my rights are being violated. You're the reason why my guns are being taken. You're the reason why this, that, or the other, whatever the case may be. You don't have an individual that you can point at, because there's a web of bureaucracy that diffuses any responsibility from one single individual. And this is the genius of the bureaucracy that we exist in today. The nature of this bureaucracy is death by 1,000 cuts. And they're going to keep pushing and poking and prodding until they get you right where they want you. I mean, I'm thinking back to Lobby Day in Virginia. They went to Richmond, and what was it, year 2020, I think.
This is an annual gun rights rally. Today, attendees are protesting new gun laws proposed after Democrats regained control of the state legislature there. White supremacist groups, militias, and counter-protesters may also attend, and there are fears that violence could erupt. Gun rights advocates say that they don't want any more gun control that affects everyday law-abiding citizens.
It was a fantastic turnout of individuals. I mean, they were there and they weren't willing to sacrifice their gun rights. I remember there was sheriffs in some of the counties in Virginia talking about deputizing their citizens so they didn't have to be adherent to these draconian gun laws that were being proposed. And that's great. We see that turnout for the protection of the Second Amendment, which is wonderful, but when are we ever going to actually think about these things in terms of actually preserving a moral culture for our country? You have to understand what's coming. That clip there that you just saw, they were talking about how they were concerned that there was going to be violence. Of course, there was no violence. There rarely ever is any violence in these types of events. They just like to plant that little seed inside people's heads to think that, oh, no, these people are violent. The reality is they all left. They actually cleaned up after themselves, and the city was probably cleaner than it was before they showed up there. So, citizens doing their due diligence. But they don't really care if you're a law-abiding citizen or not. To be honest, they don't. I mean, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're a victim of the regime. Pretty much. I mean, I'm not telling you to go out and break the law, certainly not. But you have to understand that this is their thinking. The law-abiding, Bible-thumping citizens of this country are threats to the regime. Because the regime reflects the exact opposite of that. The regime is staffed by demons, people who are carrying out Satan's agenda. That's what it is when you get down to the root of it. And so these good, Bible-thumping, law-abiding citizens are the enemy. So what do you do if you have an enemy? Before you go to war, you do a little thing called prepping the battle space. And that's what's happening right now. They're not going to give you any little peace or morsel or any victory because they don't want you to win. So right now, it's just a matter of time until they can finally, seize the last bastions of power that they really like to. Get rid of this little populist thorn in their side and have uncontested power. And that's what they're doing. They're going to just continue to eat away at you with these little bits of laws. Look what's happening right now. Right now, we've got 10 Republican senators, I think it was, who are coming to some gun legislation agreement with the Democrats. I mean, are we surprised when you have people like Dan Crenshaw who are advocates of red flag laws?
So, I gotta ask, why did you vote for red flag laws again after you said you didn't?
I didn't.
You did. It's on record, Congressman. Come on. Go ahead.
Congressman Crenshaw votes for red flag laws to disarm veterans.
This is inevitable, Congressman.
These people they're not representing you. The Republican right is not representing you. They're managing you. They're the tiniest little morsel of pressure release valve, if you will, to actually keep you from doing the types of things that would be effectively undoing a lot of the stuff that's happening.
I mean, there's a reason that we have a right to peacefully protest, because it doesn't actually do anything. Anything that would actually threaten the establishment would be disallowed, and of course is disallowed. So this is a good start just to strike fear into the eyes of the sinners and the degenerates and the abominable people that are occupying this area, but it's not enough.
Whether you see it or not, what's coming is inevitable. We're not that far off from potentially seeing political assassinations in the news, and when it happens, it's probably going to be a one-day headline, if that, and they're going to forget about it. I mean, they just arrested a guy outside one of the Supreme Court justices' house, Brett Kavanaugh. They've been threatening the Supreme Court justices. Who knows what the results are going to be once this decision comes down about Roe v. Wade. How violent is the left going to get? How targeted are they going to get? We talked about this last time when I was in D.C. and I was walking around. The narrative's going to shift.
Shortly after the George Floyd incident, there was a lot of unrest, riots, and protests in the streets during that time. Do you think you'd see something like that, and do you think that that's something that would be justified if this gets overturned?
Well, I hope so.
I think we remember back to 2020 after the George Floyd incident that there were a lot of people who were very upset, and there was a lot of protests and kind of riots in the streets over that. Do you think you could see something similar to that this go around if that happens?
I don't know. You would like to.
It's funny. So I was here. I was one of probably 10 or 15 people yesterday in a sea of probably 6,000 out here in front of these steps yesterday. And we were viciously attacked. I was spit on, literally women coming up and spitting in the face. So yeah, do I think that's a possibility? Especially after, a year of BLM riots and burning down of America? 100%. I don't think listen, people that want violence will resort to violence. Mm-hmm. So if you want and believe in the violence, taking the violent act of taking another human's life because of any particular reason you deem necessary, without apology, at any age, do I think you are capable of other forms of violence if you don't get your way or if that's taken away from you?
Yeah.
By logical extension, yes.
I mean, ultimately, their ideology is rooted in violence
exactly.
and the expression of violence, so it's not a leap 100%. To say that they would act on that. So.
Yeah.
Because now people who are anti-baby killers, they're pro-life. The pro-life people are going to be the victims of these baby killers. And they're going to start targeting churches. There's already precedent for this. I mean, think about when there was the mass grave scandal up in Canada not that long ago. How many churches got burned in Canada on the false precept that the Catholic Church at some point in its history had killed all these native children, which was totally a lie, by the way. It was completely false. But that was just some little, edit at the bottom of the news article a year or two later after it was discovered, after it was proven by a bunch of academics that it actually never happened. But that didn't change the fact that dozens of churches got burned across that country. And socially, the types of things that are being instituted were only ever really a couple years behind Canada. So what do you think happens? What do you think happens when the left gets all riled up because they can't kill their babies anymore? Where do you think they're going to go? They've already been targeting churches in this country. They view this as an existential crisis to them. They say women are going to die. Women are going to die if we can't kill our babies. So I guess that means it's an either-or scenario. I mean, we can't have these good, liberal, progressive women die, so I guess we got to make sure that all these Bible-thumping Christians die.
The rest of my life is impacted because of politics, because of conservative. I'm telling you, those conservative Christian people, they need to. I'm going to see my boyfriend. Oh! The one that you watch hanging out at the army. I'm going to see my.
Oh, look, there's a church nearby. Maybe I'll go shatter a few windows. Maybe I'll go break up a mass service. Maybe I'll go firebomb it at night. And the same thing's going to happen to them that happened to the people who were so eager to share their love in 2020 during the George Floyd protests, which is they're not going to be pursued by the FBI. The DAs who, have their pockets full of Soros money are going to give light sentencing. The regime wants instability, and they want you to be subverted. They want you to be obedient. This is what we're facing. So why do you think they're pushing the gun issue again? Problem, reaction, solution. Hegelian dialectic. They'll use it over and over and over again on you. So you got to start realizing you're in a war, whether you want to be or not. This nation is more polarized now than it has ever been. The idea and the topic of civil war is more mainstream now than it could have ever been imagined. We're in that fourth turning stage where something is bound to go down. And it is an existential crisis. Are you going to let them win, take control, take power? Or are you going to stand up for yourself? You stand up for your community. What are you doing at your local churches? Do you have plans in place? Or are we just playing this game where we think that, well, that can never happen here? Really? Really? Let's see. Let's wait till this Roe v. Wade decision comes down and let's see what can never happen here. Because I guarantee you, however bad you think it's going to get, it'll get worse. And I'll say this, if you don't have a firearm yet, you probably should. You probably should. And it's not enough just to have a firearm. Do you know how to use it? Do you know how to employ it? You think you're just going to learn the day you actually need it? Train like you fight. The left has been shoring up power and crippling resistance in this country for decades now. The right has been losing professionally, and anybody who says we've been winning, take a look around. You're not winning. Not yet. But if we're ready for the pendulum to start swinging in the other direction, it's time to be a little bit louder about the kind of things that we believe. You can't sit by, you can't be quiet. They've got to know that they don't have a majority in this country. They don't have a monopoly on public opinion. They definitely don't have the guns. This is what they need to know. This is what they need to be aware of. Pray for peace, train for war. That's where we're at. I'd like to paint a rosy picture of butterflies and rainbows, but I can't. And this goes beyond so much more than just having your guns, because I know the types of people out there who think that if they have 30,000 rounds of 5.56 stockpiled, then nothing can hurt them. No, this is a lifestyle change. You gotta understand the way things are headed. You need to be making yourself a weapon, an asset to you, to your family, to your community. Can you grow a tomato plant? If not, why not? Are you in a place where you're going to be a victim the minute things start breaking down? If you are, why? What kind of things can you start implementing now to make yourself a hard target? I'd say the most important thing that you could be doing right now is praying for peace. Not just talking about praying for peace, but actually praying for peace. Actually praying for some kind of peaceful resolution. We can only hope that God can provide some kind of solution like that. Folks, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I hope you like this new format. This is a little different going forward. I think this is going to be a better way to express these types of ideas. So if you hated it, just let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys again so much for watching. God bless. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Joe Biden, you're not coming for our guns.